China has long been viewed as a powerful nation in Asia, a rising superpower with massive economic strength, an enormous military, and ambitions to dominate the South China Sea. Yet, despite its strength, there is a growing belief that China cannot win a war against the Philippines anymore. To understand why, we need to break down the layers of politics, military strategy, alliances, and the shifting balance of power in the region. First, let's start with the simple question. Why does China care so much about the Philippines? The answer lies in geography and resources. The South China Sea is one of the busiest trade routes in the world, with trillions of dollars worth of goods passing through it every year. Beneath its waters are rich oil and gas reserves, along with massive fishing grounds. For decades, China has been trying to expand its territorial claims over almost the entire South China Sea, drawing its infamous nine-dash line across waters claimed by multiple countries, including the Philippines. China has built artificial islands equipped with military bases, airstrips, and missile systems to project power in the region. But here's the twist. Despite all this military buildup, China is realizing that the Philippines is no longer the easy target it once thought it was. Why? Because the Philippines has something that China does not and cannot defeat: alliances and geography. The Philippines is a treaty ally of the United States under the Mutual Defense Treaty signed in 1951. Both countries agreed to come to each other's defense in case of an armed attack. This means that any Chinese aggression against the Philippines risks bringing the world's most powerful military, the U.S., into the fight. And let's be clear, the U.S. is not just watching silently. It has recently expanded its access to Philippine bases under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA, giving it the ability to rotate troops, store military equipment, and launch operations directly from Philippine soil. This is a nightmare scenario for China, because it means American forces are now positioned much closer to Taiwan and the South China Sea, making any Chinese offensive riskier and more costly. In addition, the Philippines has strengthened its ties with Japan, Australia, and even European powers like France and the United Kingdom, all of which have increased naval patrols and military cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. China may have numbers, but numbers mean little when you are surrounded by coalitions ready to counterbalance your moves. Geography plays another key role. The Philippines is not a single piece of land. It is an archipelago made up of over 7,000 islands, making it extremely difficult to invade or occupy. Unlike a flat, open battlefield, the Philippines' scattered islands provide natural defensive advantages. For example, any invading force would have to stretch its supply lines across vast waters, facing the risk of ambushes from smaller, faster vessels, submarines, and aircraft. Plus, the terrain of the islands themselves, jungles, mountains, and coastal defenses, would make any occupation bloody and costly. China's military doctrine heavily depends on overwhelming its opponent quickly. But the Philippines, combined with U.S. forces, would turn the conflict into a prolonged war of attrition, something China desperately wants to avoid. Now let's talk about China's image internationally. The moment China launches a war against the Philippines, it would lose any moral high ground in global politics. Remember, the Philippines is a much smaller nation with far fewer resources. The world would see China as a bully, and countries sitting on the sidelines right now would be forced to take sides. Nations like India, Vietnam, and even neutral powers in Europe would increase pressure against Beijing through economic sanctions and military cooperation. Imagine China trying to sustain a war while also facing sanctions cutting off its access to technology, trade, and investment. It would cripple its already fragile economy, which is heavily dependent on exports. Another reason China cannot win is the rise of Filipino nationalism. Years ago, the Philippines was often criticized for being too soft against Chinese encroachment. But times have changed. Today, the Filipino people are far more vocal about protecting their sovereignty. The government under different administrations has taken stronger positions, filing international cases and winning a historic ruling in 2016 at The Hague, which invalidated China's 9-line claim. While China ignored the ruling, the international community did not. This legal victory remains a powerful weapon for the Philippines in the court of global opinion. It means that any war launched by China would not only be illegal under international law, but would also strengthen the resolve of Filipinos to resist occupation with guerrilla tactics and people's support. The Philippines has another trump card: technology and modernization. For years, its military lagged behind. But now, with increasing support from allies, the armed forces of the Philippines is undergoing rapid modernization, receiving advanced radar systems, coastal defense missiles, drones, and fighter jets. While still small compared to China's arsenal, the key difference is interoperability. The Philippines does not fight alone. Its systems are being integrated with those of the U.S. and other allies, meaning better coordination, faster intelligence sharing, and combined firepower. This levels the playing field significantly and makes Chinese victory nearly impossible. Let's not forget economics. China's economy is already slowing down, facing a property crisis, youth unemployment, and declining global trust. Engaging in a war against the Philippines would accelerate foreign companies pulling out and investors fleeing. Imagine trying to sustain a long military campaign while your economy collapses at home. It is not sustainable, and Beijing knows it. Some analysts argue that China's military strength is exaggerated. On paper, China has the world's largest navy by number of ships, but many of those are smaller, less capable vessels. Meanwhile, the U.S. Navy and its allies field fewer but far more advanced ships, with nuclear submarines, aircraft carriers, and cutting-edge stealth technology. This matters because in modern warfare, quality and coordination often outweigh quantity. In a direct clash, Chinese fleets could be overwhelmed by superior U.S. technology operating from Philippine bases, making Beijing think twice. Another underestimated factor is information warfare. Today, wars are not just fought with bullets, but also with narratives. The Philippines enjoys international sympathy because it is perceived as the underdog standing up to a giant. China, on the other hand, suffers from negative perceptions of authoritarianism, aggression, and bullying in disputed waters. So every time a Chinese vessel rams a Filipino fishing boat or blocks resupply missions to Philippine outposts, it loses the information war and strengthens the Philippines' global support base. China is also overstretched. It faces tensions with India on its Himalayan border, unrest in Hong Kong, unresolved issues in Xinjiang, and most importantly, its ultimate goal, Taiwan. If China were to launch a war against the Philippines, it would distract resources from Taiwan, the real prize it has long sought to reclaim. Beijing cannot afford to open multiple war fronts simultaneously because doing so risks weakening its position across all battles. Meaning, the Philippines serves as a trap, a costly distraction that could derail China's entire strategic vision. Here's the big picture. China knows it cannot win a war against the Philippines anymore, not because of weakness, but because the cost of winning is too high. Militarily, it would be dragged into a fight with the United States and its allies. Economically, it would be isolated. Diplomatically, it would lose global standing. And domestically, it would risk unrest from a population already dealing with economic challenges. In contrast, the Philippines has transformed from being a vulnerable small nation to becoming a critical partner in a larger coalition. Its people are united, its military is modernizing, and its alliances are stronger than ever. In simple terms, China may have the power to start a war, but it no longer has the ability to win one. Every move it makes in the South China Sea is now watched closely by a global network of powers ready to respond. And that is the ultimate reason why China cannot win a war against the Philippines anymore. Because victory is not measured by how many ships you have or how many missiles you can launch, but by whether you can achieve your goals without destroying yourself in the process. If China tries, it will discover that the Philippines is not alone. It is backed by friends, allies, and a spirit of resistance that no military might can conquer. And in the end, that is why Beijing will think twice before ever choosing war against Manila.